Commissioners, we have Director Richard Luna here to present for Department of Public Works to present on the Bureau of Solid Waste CIP requests.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting us and having us here. My name is Richard Lynn. I'm the Interim Director for the Department of Public Works. I believe last year we were doing this virtually, so I'm glad we're doing this in person because it's good to see you all. And for us, we'll have two presentations for you today. This first one's going to be specifically on our Bureau of Solid Waste, and then we'll have a presentation later this afternoon talking about our Water and Wastewater Utilities Division. We can go to the next slide. Department of Public Works, just want to overall give the mission there. Perfect, thank you. Our mission is to support the health, environment, and economy of the city and region by providing customers with safe drinking water and keeping our neighborhoods and waterways clean. Our vision is to be a strong proponent and protector of our environment and the health and vitality of our communities. DPW, when I'm talking about the agency overall, always mention that it seems like we touch everything throughout the city and the region. And we understand that incredible responsibility. Our staff takes great pride in the work that they do. When I'm ever in front of our team and our staff, and a number of them are here with us today, what I always highlight and mention is some of the hardest working people that I've ever worked with throughout my 10 plus years working in local government. I'm truly blessed to be part of this agency. Our staff does the hardest jobs within this region. And so just happy to be a part of it, happy to help lead the agency during this time. And then just also as we talk about the work throughout this presentation, the one later this afternoon, just to highlight some of that amazing work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Our organizational chart, many of the members here are in the room. Our Bureau Head, Paul Sand, he'll be joining us later. I'll be turning it over shortly to our Bureau Head, Craig Jeter. But those are our two main bureaus within the Department of Public Works, Water and Wastewater and the Bureau of Solid Waste. That takes up the majority of our operations. Internally and administratively, Deepti Moto, our Chief Administrative Officer, and LaToya Curtis, who's with me today as the Chief of Staff, oversee the majority of our administration staff within DPW. And then we also have representation. Darnell Ingram, he's our General Counsel, Chief Compliance Officer. Marco Merrick, who oversees all of the equity efforts within DPW, including our Water Advocacy Office. But overall, just an incredible leadership team that supports me on the day-to-day operations and managing this incredible agency. As I mentioned, the equity efforts within DPW, our motto is equity in all that we do. And so we really do pay attention and give strict attention to the services that we provide. We have amazing partnerships with various different through our community liaisons within DPW, led by our Office of Strategic Alliances. And we have a number of different equity initiatives in all of our programs, both internally and externally. One of the major benefits over this past year is developing more partnerships with different universities, helping us in our recruitment efforts. And speaking just on solid waste has one of the lowest vacancy rates amongst the city. If you were to separate them out and make them a standalone agency and compare their numbers, they'd be one of the best in the city. So currently under an 11% vacancy rate. That's the lowest we've seen since pre-pandemic levels. And we've been doing an incredible job of partnering with different agencies to making sure that we're recruiting efficiently and then also being diverse in those candidates that we're bringing forward to the agency. Our overall fiscal 24 operating budget, DPW's operating budget is $676 million. The breakdown is there as follows. As I mentioned, the Bureau of Solid Waste and Bureau of Water and Wastewater are two primary functions. Bureau of Solid Waste is primarily general fund funded, and there are some stormwater funds that are included within the Bureau of Solid Waste. Bureau of Water and Wastewater, that is fully utility funded. We'll talk more about that later this afternoon. And then the fiscal year 24 capital budget, a larger percentage gap there, but primarily Bureau of Solid Waste, like I mentioned, is the general funded agency or bureau within the city. So they take about 2% of our overall capital budget. And the Bureau of Water and Wastewater is the majority of our capital funding, which is all utility funded, which is special funded. In terms of the CIP projects, these projects overall, we'll get into more details. I turn it over next to our Bureau Head, Craig Jeter, but again, 10.75 million total for fiscal year '24 for the CIP project. And it's a list of different areas and different improvements there. One of the ones that I want to highlight is the one at the bottom of the screen, solid waste facility improvements. I know there's been a lot of discussion over that over the past several years, and huge credit to the city for putting more funding, more dedicated funding to improving our solid waste facilities. We take great pride in making sure that we have employees coming to places of work that they feel proud of and to work in. And so we've been doing a lot more efforts to making sure that, one, all of our facilities are within compliance, and then also to looking at those facilities and see how we can improve and make better places for our employees to come and work. So with that, I'll turn it over next to Craig Jeter, who's our Bureau Head for Solid Waste, and I'll be available as well too after the presentation for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, AD Luna, for the intro and the early aspects of the slides. My name is Craig Jeter. I'm the Bureau Head for Solid Waste, and I've been here since July of last year. So just going to kind of go through these slides. I'm going to try to slow down, not to go too fast. But our assets, Quarantine Road, obviously was our active landfill right now. The other three are closed. Pennington, Monument, Woodbury. We have our active transfer station at Northwest. As part of our solid waste sanitation yard, we have King Street, Reedbird, Bowley's. And we have our two residential drop-off centers, which is Sisson Street and Bowley's Lane. I think this is just a map of showing where the facilities are at within the city, so it's spread out pretty good, so all the residents have access and we can supply the services as needed. Here's some kudos. Our Eastside Transfer Station. These are just some recent accomplishments that we'd like to talk about. Over at the Eastside Transfer Station, we had a contract between the authority, and it was approved, submitted and approved, and to design and construct the Eastside Transfer Station and the compost facility, which is currently at Bowley's Lane. That is going to be a great accomplishment once we get that off the ground and up and running. The parking lot has been completed over there. We put in a brand new concrete parking lot for the trucks to park on, and we're improving the lighting over there as well for the drivers and the staff. Over at the landfill, we made a number of improvements towards our stormwater basins. One of the biggest accomplishments was we removed the trees and the large vegetation that was at the landfill, and that was an issue with MDE. And I went over there last week, and I would say probably 98% of that is done. Looks like a total different place with those trees down. The contractor is currently just trying to grind the stumps down into just get it down to ground level, and that project will be done. So that's a great accomplishment. And there's the parking lot I was talking about over at the Eastside Sanitation Yard. It was a part of the immediate repairs to be done to the site. Again, the authority and part of constructing, the transfer station and the compost facility. That was a total cost of looks like $2 million, and that got done last October. And the staff and the drivers are quite happy about that. And here's some of the pictures of those trees I was talking about that vegetation got removed. It's no telling how long those trees have been growing. I mean, some of them had some pretty good size on them, but we had a contractor who was able to come in there and get us back into compliance with MDE, and that was the main objective. And our goal was to be completed by December, which again, I'd say we're about 98% of the way there. Another one of our compliance projects at the landfill, stormwater management and E&S controls. We had some leachate issues, and they continue to kind of pop up occasionally when we get heavy rain events. And now we've got a few measures in place that would help us minimize that. You can see the end result was that they put a riser over at basin number 5, which is cell number 6. And you can see there was some work done at cell number 6 area where they graded it and hydroseeded it for soil stabilization. Again, that was part of an MDE compliance requirement. So, and I believe that second picture was actually done when I first got here, or maybe a month after. There was a leachate seep on the hill. What caused that was they had taken some mattresses some long time ago, and mattresses are a bit fickle. And this is why landfills don't want them anymore. If you don't get those buried the correct way, then they're gonna come back up, and they're gonna contain and hold. Yeah, it's not a pretty sight. Yeah, no pun intended. Correct. Yeah. 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 So we had to dig them up and reseed that area. And there's actually vendors in the city who are recycling mattresses. That's like taking on a new life now, and hopefully we can continue to keep them out of the landfill. I shrieked too when I heard that as well, Miss Allen. Not a job I want to have. Yeah.
Could I interrupt you for a question now, just because it's specific to this?
Sure.
Do you mind, Mr. Chair?
No, please.
So for these sort of compliance projects, it looks that we've got a line in the budget for it, Quarantine Road Landfill Compliance Services. Previously, last year's budget, we had $2 million a year budgeted for that. This year's budget, we've got $0 in 25, 26, 27, and then $1 million per year, 28, 29, 30. Could you enlighten me on why that is, or how that meets our needs?
If we need specific ones, we have fiscal and budget staff as well too that can help answer that.
We can come back then to the end. I guess for now, is that project complete or is it ongoing?
Which particular project?
The Quarantine Road
The compliance?
compliance.
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
Our 2025 CIP request, Eastside Transportation, we were just talking about it. $16 million. Quarantine Road Landfill, $3 million. Our facility improvements, 1.5, and Quarantine Road Landfill, the compliance piece is 1.5. So there's a difference between the landfill and the landfill compliance piece. Total of $22.5 million is the ask. Oh yeah, this is a great picture of the potential Eastside transfer station. This is going to be big for the area. We could do so much more with that second transfer station up. Some of the waste that we have, and I'm kind of going off script here a little bit, some of the waste that we have in the area that we don't capture all of it because we don't have a facility to help us do that. Well, this could help us down the road, and it could mean some additional revenue for the city. So I'm excited about this particular project. Also, it's going to be where we will host the compost facility, and our residents will have a much better drop-off facility. Also, the small haulers will also appreciate it. I'm not sure if any of you've been there, but now the system is, you drive in and you're throwing it in the roll-off box, or you got to throw it over. So imagine having a couch or recliner, you're trying to get it in there. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, wow. But anyway, the new design, you'll actually be able to drive up over it, dump it off your truck as it should be. This is like maybe a stopgap, but this new design will definitely be a much more improvement for the entire area. People are going to really enjoy it. Total cost for this one's $23.5 million, and the timeline's about 3 years. Quarantine Road relocation. So this is part of trying to do the expansion. We're trying to increase our capacity to last us to 2048 instead of 2027. We've got to move a road and some utilities, and it's going to be a big undertaking, and we'll have to have multiple partners that we'll have to collaborate to get that done. The current expansion costs are roughly $100 million, but some of the resource and supply chain issues will likely, that price could go up or go down, just depends on when we actually get into the meat of it, where we're at with it. That timeline also, we hope to start that at the beginning of our 2025, maybe with that first cell, all goes well. We don't get a lot of bad weather and we don't have a lot of supply chain issues. Maybe we can start it in 26 and maybe complete it by 2028. Our southeastern sanitation, our yard renovation, that's our Kane Street facility. It's going to have a new parking lot that's going to be beneficial as far as our landscaping and drainage. Right now, we currently have some issues there. Electrical, lighting, HVAC. I mean, this place would be pretty much brand new. Offer space for staff, lockers. I mean, you name it. It'll pretty much be brand new compared to, what it looks like now. The budget for this one is about $7.8 million. And again, the timeline for this project as well would be about 3 years. Over at Western Sanitation renovation, which is our Reedburg facility, same thing, major upgrades going over there. The drop-off site for this location is very similar to the one that is at Bowley's, where the people come in and they have to dump it into dumpsters and be challenged with getting heavy objects out of their vehicles and over roll-off containers. The new design will have them driving up a ramp, again, dumping off into a dumpster. And I'm sure residents are going to be very excited about that. Actually, I was on a call about this particular facility yesterday, and we are in the design phases of it. And we've got a lot of people involved. We're having staff weigh in, working with the designer, people, who've been there for a number of years, who could give us some valuable input. So everybody's excited about that. The price for this one's going to be around $8 million. And again, this is going to be a 3-year project. I actually asked the designer yesterday, because I knew I was coming to this meeting, and I said, so realistically, when do you really think, we're gonna have a shovel, we can break ground and get something done? And they told me possibly the fall of this year, we could probably get it done if we can continue to stay on track with the design and stuff. And so I've ordered some hard hats for us, and we're gonna have some shiny new shovels, and we're ready, because we want some positive feedback, with the public. We want to be able to just show them, hey, we got a new facility coming, and it is going to be state of the art, and our employees definitely deserve such a facility. So I'm really excited about this one. Is probably going to be the first one that we're going to get off the ground. The compliance projects that you were mentioning. So here's some of them. Our daily covering of waste is mandatory. And I think in the beginning, we weren't hitting that for a lot of reasons. But now staff is well involved, they're well engaged, and they realize that it's just not an option. We got to cover the trash up at the end of the day. Placing a fluff layer at the base of any new cell, that's going to protect our liners. And again, that's going to be part of meeting our MDE disposal permit requirements. And we will need a sufficient budget to continue these activities, and we do have to satisfy MDE, period. We just can't be out of compliance. More pictures, you can see where they are grading the cell 2 area, and there are those mattresses that we just talked about that we are collecting, and we are trying to find another way of. We're trying to get a contract in line to have a vendor come and pick those up. We do have some interest from people who would like to, again, get those and reuse them, or not reuse them, recycle them. And picture number 3, again, it's talking about covering up the fluff on top of the gravel above cell number 6. And that last picture is a picture of our new tipping face. That started in December of last year. Our future solid waste CIP requests. So for FY '26, you can see our ask for Northwest Transfer Station. Quarantine is 3 million. Of course, it goes over to 2027 as well. Our solid waste facility improvement, which is a big one for us because we want those facilities to get upgraded. 0.75 and then 1.5 million for 2027. Again, the compliance 1.5, go over to 2027, it's 1.5 again. And you see our regulatory compliance in 2028, 1 million and another million for the next 3 years. Our C&D recycling center, that's 1 million in 2028, 2 million in 2029, another 2 million in 2030. And then our long haul transfer station needs, which would begin in 2028. That would be about 2.5 million. And then in 29, another 3 million, and then FY '30 would end in $3 million. So our long haul transfer station solution, that's to be determined. We're still figuring that out. Not really ready to discuss it. I know there was some talk about the rail spurs and stuff, but we got to do a little bit more homework on that. Our C&D recycling center, $25 million project. Our compost facility, that would be $8 million. And yeah, here's our long haul transfer station. It is yet to construct a rail transfer station where operations can be consolidated and provide more efficiently. This facility would be built along a rail spur to allow for containerization and rail shipment of waste, and could also be operated as a truck transfer station. Rail transfer from RTS would provide a more efficient, cost-effective, environmentally friendly service than truck transfer, and would allow waste to be sent to multiple regional landfills or even more distant facilities as needed. An RTS could accept waste from the commercial as well as residential sectors in Baltimore and potentially surrounding counties. And to help it make it economically viable, we'd hope it'd be big enough to hold about 30,000 tons a year.
Sure. What percent of our solid waste is sort of distributed to third-party locations?
What percentage is distributed now?
Yeah.
The only other party that gets our waste would be Bresco.
Oh, okay.
There's no one else that we're shipping it to.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Ryer has a question for you regarding the long haul solution.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I do. So I'm very curious about, this is our big long-term project here. If you look at map of rail lines in the city, they're overwhelmingly in the southern third of the city. So is there an opportunity there with either Anne Arundel County or Baltimore County to do some sort of joint rail transfer station? And should we be exploring that?
So there is a possibility, but it would depend on, I know we have rail spur access. What I don't know is if the other neighboring counties do. If not, then they would have to probably build something close by, because the only way it's going to work, you got to have something close to the rail. You can't, CSX or whoever's not going to come in there and say, okay, well, you build it over here, we're going to put a train through there. It's got to be in that vicinity. But I know that currently one of the bigger haulers in our area, they have their trash railed down to Southern Virginia now. There's 2 sites, I think. I think there's one in Annapolis Junction. There's one there that they do, and I believe there's one very close to our landfill. I think Republic has one. I think they're railing theirs down there as well. So there are some sites there, and we're closer to our side to doing it. So if we did a joint venture, maybe the worst case scenario would be we would host it, and the other counties would bring it to that facility and dump it. which would be a much shorter turnaround than, taking it down to Southern Virginia, because at some point, even our own, like I said, even our own landfill is gonna fill up. And Waste Management's got the biggest landfill in the area. And that landfill that's in Southern Virginia, and Republic has one down there as well. They got like a 50 or 100-year life cycle. So that would be the thought process.
So going back on Commissioner McCoach's question, there are multiple solid waste providers in the city. So we have the city, which collects a certain amount of trash and disposes of it. Then you have, private contractors like the Waste Management and the Republic. The Waste Management and Republic, are they dumping their trash in our landfills, or are they taking them to their landfills?
Yeah, they're taking it to their landfills. Occasionally, they may send a truck or so to our landfill if it's in that vicinity, if it makes sense, operationally to, hey, just go take it to Quarantine Road versus taking it back over to Annapolis Junction. But they're internalizing, as we should be. That's my vision as well. We should be internalizing all of our waste. We should have say-so on, who's picking up trash in the city. Then DPW should have a say in that, where you're taking it. That's revenue that's leaving our city. And at some point, we'll have to come back and have a bigger conversation about that. But we got to figure out how to capture that, how to have flow control is what it's called in the industry. And that would be huge going towards our long haul transfer station. If we had that flow control, then you could do some big things with this long haul transfer solution.
Thank you.
Our C&D demolition center, 35% of our waste, our disposal stream. If we could divert this and we could start recycling it in order to hit our goal of 90%, that would be a huge accomplishment. Obviously, reducing waste disposal rates will eliminate the need for environmentally degrading disposal options as we use now, namely the big incinerator and landfilling. And we can reduce our reliance on these facilities. Also, that would save the city, just a huge cost or trying to build more additional facilities. Our compost pile, this is going to be great. Everybody, we talk about the less waste, but better Baltimore. So what better way than to compost our waste here and then be able to give it back to the residents to use in their yards and stuff. That's going to be very exciting when that happens. Also, we were selected for a grant, that $4 million grant that goes towards the composting. So we're going to also build a solar-powered composting facility. The level of funding will develop the site at 50% capacity, 12,000 tons per year throughout, and the total site capacity is estimated to be about 24,000 tons per year. This projected cost is about $8 million, and again, this is another 3-year project. And our 10-year solid waste management plan, we just got that approved a couple of months ago. And I guess I can just read this from verbatim. It's a regulatory plan submitted to the MDE to map our operational needs, our constraints and improvements for waste management within the city for the next 10 years. The plan consolidates goals for managing the city's solid waste stream, assesses the existing solid waste collection systems, current and future disposal capacity needs, and how zero waste strategies like reuse, recycling, and composting are being implemented. So our goals and objectives, we want to provide waste reduction and diversion opportunities, waste and recycling collection services to our city residents, which we're doing that now, but we just want to be better at it. Explore opportunities to increase the efficiency and cost effectiveness of the city's solid waste program. We want to minimize improper waste disposal, which is a huge problem now, illegal dumping and littering, implement waste reduction and diversion strategies as outlined in Less Waste, Better Baltimore plan. The city's long-term strategic master plan for improving solid waste management and recycling. We also want to increase the amount of waste that is diverted from the disposal at our landfill and at the incinerator. And we want to promote our local and state legislation that supports waste diversion and source reduction. At the end of our slides. So in conclusion, the city's waste stream will continue to grow at an annual rate of 0.7 per year based on historical waste generation models. Investment in different strategies is necessary to provide the department with flexibility to manage the city's future waste needs. The proposed FY25 capital projects will support the Bureau's ability to continue to provide waste and recycling collection and disposal services, Quarantine Road relocation, and expansion of Quarantine Road landfill, maintain regulatory compliance with state and federal requirements, create a healthy and safe work environment for employees, and pursue waste diversion initiatives. And that's it.
All right, starting off with questions, we're going to go with Commissioner or Vice Chair Stevenson first.
And if I don't have the question for you, I will get back to you. If I don't have the answer, should I say.
Thank you very much. Great presentation, important work. I believe I answered my own question about the Quarantine Road compliance. It looks like we just have that on two different budget lines for some reason, so understood. Really important there with the environmental impacts. I guess my one question is about the Northwest Transfer Station. Looks like we have money budgeted in fiscal year '26 that did not show up in the budget last year, and there's not a lot of detail here in terms of, it says unspecified. Can you just offer any more information about what's planned for the Northwest?
Are you asking me what the plans are, or are you asking me money about dollars and cents specifically?
Fair clarification. So not about dollars and cents specifically, a little bit about what the repairs may be, but more so
Okay.
about the process. As I mentioned to Director Johnson before you, I'm really interested in, things that show up in the budget that on the 6-year horizon that weren't, previously considered. And a lot of times there's really good reasons. These are important repairs. But I just noticed that as a new thing. So what can you tell me about
So
it?
I can tell you at Northwest, yeah, we need a complete upgrade. We have 3 pits. These pits are I don't want to say that they're outdated, but they're really aged. And since I've been here in July, we probably have had maybe 2 working pits consistently, maybe for 3 months. And as of today, we're down 2 pits out of the 3. We have 1 working. So imagine if that 3rd pit goes out. I mean, we got some problems. So operationally, I would say the first thing is we have to come up with a design. Do we even want to continue operating like that? Is the compaction pits the way to go? I would say financially, it's really not, because they're expensive, probably like $250,000 or so to put them in, and then the repair over the years on the hydraulics, the wear and tear, the more state-of-the-art transfer stations, the truck pulls in, they push the trash in the pit, they just tamp it down, the trailer pulls out, they tarp it, and he's on his way. Most municipalities have this type of setup. I'm not really sure why vendors went after municipalities to try to get this type of setup. Majority of the private companies stay away from that because of the repair issues. So yeah, we would definitely, it just needs to be upgraded. And once we find the correct model that would work, and you saw the east side, that's probably what it would be. Drive underneath the building, push it in the pit, tamp it down, let the truck continue on and dump the waste. But you hear about the lines over there. The facility is fairly small to take the people that we're taking in currently. We need a bigger yard, probably a newer design. There's several opportunities to really make the efficiency so much better over there.
Okay.
And so that's what you're going to see at Northwest.
Great, thank you. Speaking about the East Side project, I can see how excited you are for that project. Looks great. We did have money budgeted for that in past years, and now it looks like it's going to be funded mostly by state money. Is that correct?
I don't think it's all going to be state money. Some of that is, I believe some of that's ARPA funded as well. But, and am I right about that? Am I saying that correctly? Yeah. Okay. But,
Great. And then that's more of a question of following the allocations as opposed to questioning the priorities, because I think that's a great project. And then lastly, the rail transfer station. I'm really excited to see that included in the capital budget. We've been talking about it for a while as a critical infrastructure piece to stem our reliance on Bresco, out-of-town haulers, as well as the cost associated with all of that. So it's also really interesting to hear you talk about trash as a revenue stream.
oh, yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. I appreciate the strategy if you can make that happen. My question under all of this is, we've got 8.5 million budgeted in 28, 29, 30 for the rail transfer station, a projected cost of 80 million. Any thoughts on where that money would eventually come from? And do we have any money in the short term for planning while we're discussing questions about, feasibility and location?
So the second part of your question, I can say no, we don't have that. The first part of your question, I can foresee that one of the ways that we may get that done is partnerships. Somebody had mentioned about with the other partners with other counties, but the private companies as well. There is, if the spur is there, that's the biggest domino right there. You get that one knocked down, everything else is going to fall right into play. But yeah, we'd have to probably. I wouldn't even want to take that on as a city by ourselves. We would definitely want to try to get some partners involved to help shoulder the cost, and also they're going to probably want to share in the revenue stream, and that's expected. But hopefully, we're going to get the lion's share because it's our particular project. But the best way to get something like that done is partner with some people who've got experience. So we're not coming in trying to figure things out. At the end of the day, we all want the same objective. We want to handle the waste accordingly. We want to have a place to dump it. We want to meet our zero waste goals, our waste diversion goals, and this long-term solution and getting waste from the incinerator, this is going to be the way to go.
Great. Thank you.
Councilman Costello.
Thank you. Can you give us an update on the status of improvements to the bathroom facilities at the sanitation yards?
So that's part of the ongoing design concept right now. The first facility that you will probably see upgraded will be the Reedburg, which is I don't remember what it was called on the screen, but anyway, the Reedburg facility. So that's the one that we're working on right now. That's the one that we're hoping to break ground in the fall of this year, fall of 2025, should I say. And the other facility, I'm not sure if you're aware, but they actually put some modular trailers out there for offices. And so some of the staff now, instead of using the bathrooms that you're talking about, they got that option. They can go to those as well. So they've kind of given them a slight upgrade, but the bigger one comes once we actually start breaking ground and getting the new facility built.
What about Bowley's Lane?
I'm sorry, Bowley's Lane is where the trailers are at. I said it wrong.
And can employees shower in those trailers as well?
I don't think so. I'm I'm gonna say no. I've been in those trailers. I don't recall seeing a shower in there. But no, I'm pretty sure they can.
Recognizing that there is a lengthy process to secure the capital necessary, go through design, permitting, construction, final inspections, et cetera, I would urge the department to think about additional temporary solutions to be put in place to deal with the existing conditions of those bathrooms and locker room / shower facilities for our employees. I'll just leave it at that.
Sure.
If I can, Kristen, we have funded upgrades to both of those facilities in the past for restroom and shower improvements. Were those partial? Are they still are we still needing to allocate additional funds to complete the funding source to do that? For some reason, I was under the impression that those were funded and they should be in process of being done. Not in 2025, but so.
Reed Bird and Kane Street were fully funded for full renovations, so that'll happen as part of the full renovation. There was other funding for OSHA-related improvements, and I'm not entirely certain if the locker and restrooms were part of that scope, but we can follow up and see what was included in that prior funding for health and safety improvements.
Please do, because I remember some really nasty photographs from last year's presentation about the shower and restrooms, which prompted us to say, yeah, we need to fix those.
Implement health and safety improvements at various service yard centers, including Bowley's, Kane, Quarantine, Rebird, and Sisson, was budgeted last year and in previous years through 2024.
So the funding's there. The question is, what's happening with the improvements?
And I believe that recently got under contract for design, if I'm not mistaken.
It's under contract now for design.
So we can follow up to get the scope of what that task is for design to provide to you all to see if that's been included.
Okay.
One last piece on that. The council moved around $250,000 this previous budget year to dedicate to improvements at the bathroom facilities, locker room facilities. Do we know what the status of expenditure of those funds is?
So I don't have that answer. I don't want to take a guess, but I'll get back with you on that. But I think what happened is that's probably where those trailers came from. I'm sure that's where some of that money had to come from to buy those two trailers.
Got it. So separate from planning commission, if there's a need for additional trailers, to make sure that all solid waste laborers have access to those types of facilities, it would be very helpful to know what's the dollar figure associated with that. And if you could get that to me as soon as humanly possible, so that we can, as separate streams, start working on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
If I may, Councilman, so just on that same issue, looking at the budgets from previous years to last year, previously that money ended in this current year, not the budget year, but 2020, fiscal 24. Now in this budget, we've got $3.75 million in fiscal year 25, 26, 27 for those exact same projects. So my only question is,
Kristen, can you close that door?
has the scope increased? Or,
Thank you.
my question is, has the scope increased? And where I think we're coming from is, in previous years, we saw that, funding through 24, and we thought that not only the issue would be addressed, which I understand it's underway, but also that we were done funding this particular item. And so, again, I'm sure there's an explanation, but I think we'd like to know why we're being asked to fund it again.
I'll get back with you on that answer. I will do that.
Okay. Councilman, are you done?
Yes.
Commissioner Horn?
Great presentation. I just have a sort of a macro question, and really your slide focusing on equity. I just want just a little bit more examples or some specifics as it relates to your equity initiatives and your partners. You talk really fast about sort of these university partners. Wanted you to, what university, sort of what are they doing? And then the nonprofit partners, just wanted just some examples, because I think communication and messaging about some wins and kind of what we're doing on that front would be good. So just wanted to give you opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. The best expert for this, unfortunately, we had an emergency over in Abel Woolman building, so he had to leave this meeting. But I can take the question. So our chief, Marco Merrick, oversees all of our equity initiatives within DPW. So in terms of those university partnerships, the primary focus for us right now is Morgan State to building a pipeline through all of our engineering open vacancies. So we do have some within solid waste, but the bulk majority of those are going to be within water and wastewater. So at our 2:00 presentation, we should be able to provide you some more information on status of that. So our bureau head within water and wastewater has been having those conversations with them about building those pipelines to making sure that we're addressing our needs for all of our vacant engineer positions. So that's been a big priority for us lately. In terms of overall communications, I completely agree with you. We hired a new communications chief recently. She's coming in and she's helping us in terms of an overall assessment of how our comm staff and engagement staff are assessed. So everybody currently now is all aligned under that one chief. So we have, like I mentioned, our strategic alliances, which is community liaisons that are connected directly with most of our neighborhood associations and major community groups within Baltimore. They push out all of our information, so everything you see that's on our website or that's published or new initiatives all goes out through those various different channels. But we're really taking a look at it now and understanding how can we do a better job of making sure we're reaching all audiences. We've done a great job recently of hiring our first bilingual staff, both in legislative affairs and within our community liaisons. So they're really going to help us build that next step of making sure that we're making those connections to appropriate populations, and then also doing an assessment of how we communicate to see if we can do a much better job of reaching all of those audiences. Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Jolin.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I have a question on the compost facility. Basically, just would like to know how it works in practical application. So if you'll be collecting compostable waste, or is it a volunteer contribution from the citizens of Baltimore City? And if it's a volunteer, given that doing compostable waste is quite difficult, is there evidence to show enough interest in Baltimore City for an $8 million facility?
Well, this is a good question, and I just happened to have a meeting about this yesterday, so I'm excited to answer a question that I actually have the answer to right now. So I just discovered yesterday that we have about, I want to say maybe 200 people, 300 people or more in the city that are paying to have a compost company come to their house and get their compost. I didn't even know that, because I'm looking into a pilot program for the city. So unbeknownst to me, when he says, oh, we already got so many people who we're charging now, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So what it would look like ideally is we would come to your home, we would pick up your 7-gallon compost pail, dump it in the back of a truck. We would dump it at our compost facility, and then we would, there's a process it goes through, from fermenting to mixing with brown waste, such as leaves and yard debris. And then this material is, then you put it in a corner, you let it sit for a while. I think you flip it a few times because there's some heat issues, there's some bugs, microorganisms, whatnot, that need to do their job. And then after that, residents would come back, they would get a bucket or a bag or whatever, and they would take the compost back to their house. If they wanted to grow tomatoes or they wanted to plant some grass, they could do whatever they want to do with it. They just wanted to plant some flowers, put it in flower pots, whatever they wanted to do with it, they could. So in the ideal scheme of things, that's how it would work. I'm hoping that I don't want it to be like a volunteer-based basis. I would hope that we can offer the service to everybody. And if they want it, they sign up. But I don't want people to, we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity at it. And that's what we want to really be careful about. So if we can offer it to everybody in the city, well, then it gets distributed, equally, fairly. Now, if we bring you a bucket and you decide not to put it out, that's okay, but we gave you the bucket though. So everybody gets it. And
Would
we're
this
gonna,
just be for residences, or would it be for commercial establishments as well?
it would start out being for residences. If that went well, then we could talk to some of the businesses. Now, some of the businesses already, like restaurants, they're already doing it. They gotta do something with the grease, they gotta do something with the fat. And I think they're taking theirs, there's a place in Maryland that the company, I actually visited, they invited me out there. And they showed me how their process works. But if it takes off with the residents, we could approach some of the businesses maybe who don't do it. But the ones who already currently have it, I'm sure there's some type of incentive from that company to take that product and stuff to them. Maybe it's no cost to them. Maybe they're just giving them a bucket and saying, hey, if you let us have your compost, your food waste, we'll take it for free. So there's all types of dynamics. But in a perfect world, what I just described is, I'm hoping that's what we can do.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Williams.
No questions, thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allen.
First, I just want to express appreciation for the work that everyone in your department or agency does. I think it's often overlooked, but we couldn't function without it. I don't even want to imagine what things would be like if we did not have the people who do the labor. Secondly, I have to acknowledge your enthusiasm and excitement about the work that you do, having come from a job that was somewhat similar when I would make presentations about CIP, or especially, I won't go into detail, but I was excited about it and people would almost go to sleep. So I appreciate that, because it at least makes a difference to me in taking the information. I think the only other thing that I want to ask, the only thing I want to ask or make a statement about is, following up on Commissioner Jolin's question, I guess is more of a statement, and I think it's an assumption on my part. What you described about the composting program that you anticipate, I assume there would be an element of information or education related to composting, what it is and what its benefits would be, because not everybody is that familiar with it. I think, in my opinion, there would need to be some element of that involved.
Oh, 100%. When people think of food waste, they just think, oh, we could throw anything in there, and that's not the case. We don't want a greasy paper towel, because people think, oh, it's paper towel, it's made from wood, to break down. Some places don't even want chicken bones. It goes to a machine, but the machine's not a grinder. It's breaking down the material, it's mixing it with material. So yeah, we would definitely have a campaign where we would educate the public on the do's and the don'ts, what's acceptable, and the proper way. I'm learning myself, as we go along here. I have a compost bin at my house, and I have to tell my granddaughter, hey, no, don't put the chicken bones in there. Don't, make sure just put the eggshells, the coffee grounds, the greens, to the point where I've had to tell everybody in the house, let's make sure we don't cook too much, because we don't want to have to throw away the food. Just cook enough, got to get out of that habit of, there's 5 people, we're cooking enough for 8. No, we don't need to eat leftovers if we don't have to. So there's a big educational piece, and yeah, we will indeed let the public know prior to rolling this out.
Commissioner McCoach.
2 questions. The first has to do with recycling. I understand the multiple benefits of diverting a portion of the waste stream into recycling program. I was just wondering, is there Is there a requirement by the state in terms of conforming with the state's sustainability programs to implement recycling programs? Is there some mandate that prioritizes this expense? And then I'll ask you the second question.
I'm gonna say, recycling as a whole, whether there's a mandate or not, it's like the most responsible thing to do.
Right.
And that's kind of where we're at. I mean, 20 years ago, recycling was cardboard, paper, aluminum cans, because you can get paid for that stuff. Now, it's all commingled. So now we're paying to get rid of it. But it is part of our overall picture to help the environment. I don't know off the top of my head if there's a mandate through the state. I'd be surprised if there wasn't. Right. But yeah, it's just something it's just the way we do life now.
Okay.
You know, we're not going to have that option to not do it.
And then my second question, related to the 3 closed landfills. I think of those as basically an operating expense that continues to the end of time. But I wonder, is there any kind of asset strategy besides sort of hold and maintain? Can these things, now that they're closed, find some other beneficial purpose?
So, you ask another question that I got the answer to, okay? So, I am scheduled to go on a tour. Since I've been here in July, I haven't had a chance to go and see those facilities. I think it's set up for next Wednesday. So I'm going out there to visit these sites. And the question that I posed was what you were posing. Well, let me go see these sites because historically, you're supposed to take care of these sites for, I think it's 20 or 30 years. I don't know how long they've been closed. I don't really have the historical data. I'll probably have it by the time I go out there next Wednesday. Once I look at these facilities and let me see, what makes sense to do here. We can't plant a garden out there, but maybe we can put a synthetic football field for youth football.
Right.
Maybe we can do something, a soccer field. I don't know, but I'm thinking just like your thought process. But I want to have a visual. I need to go out there and see. It could be a big slope. I don't know. Maybe you want to put a snow machine out there and we want to slide down the mountain. I don't know, but I want to go and take a look. And then once I do, then I can give you some concrete answers as to this is what I think would work best.
Great, thank you.
So now, any other questions? So now I think you're going to get some softball questions from Commissioner Collins.
Thought she was going to abstain.
Actually, I'm not going to ask any questions. I did want to make a few comments, however. We are looking at our closed landfills. We have been doing assessments of them to see whether any portion or any significant portion of those closed landfills could be used for other purposes. And because they are assets we have to maintain. I had the joy of going through the many years of converting a Woodbury landfill to a sports complex. And the gentleman we worked with at Loyola, who was very interested when he started out, had no children, and by the time we were through, he had 3. So these conversions are not easy to do, and you do have to put a lot of work into them. As to our need to recycle, while our Bureau head is absolutely right, this is something we just must do. There is state law that mandates that at least 35% of large jurisdictions must be recycling, which I appreciate, but the Recycling Act is very skimpy when it comes to what they want to count as recyclables. They focus mostly on residential recycling, when there is a lot of recycling going on within the city that is not residential in nature. And there have been efforts on the part of the legislature to look at that law. So far, they haven't been successful in upgrading it, because the materials that are containing our food and other products are changing. And by looking at tonnage from a form of recycling is probably not the best way to do anymore, because packaging has absolutely changed. I did want to say that I am very proud of this presentation, because this is the first time when we've really gone into in-depth about waste diversion. Several years ago, we did a Less Waste, Better Baltimore study that did trash sorts and looked at all the percentages of composition in different seasons. We did the same in our 10-year solid waste management plan. Those lay the foundation for showing where our percentage of waste materials are. Construction and demolition debris, as you saw in the presentation, is a big chunk of that. If we can begin pulling that out and putting that into useful repurposing, that is a win for us and for our environment. Same with food waste and yard waste. There is a significant portion, some of it's seasonal, that occurs that can provide a foundation for a composting facility. The grant that we got is a scalable compost facility, so we're not starting out huge. We're starting out in a modest way, and once we know what we're doing and what we have, and if our statistics are correct in our waste sorts, what our sources can be, then you can build on that. You can start with just yard waste and then convert with food waste, which is a much more valuable product, but you want to be able to do it right the first time, the second time, the third time, et cetera. It's not something that you just put in a heap and cross your fingers and hope something good comes out the other side. So I just wanted to emphasize that we must go this waste diversion route. This is one of the first CIPs that's beginning to reflect that aspect. It's going to take investment. We can no longer assume that incineration and landfilling, which are relatively cheap ways in which to handle our waste, is the right way to do it. We have to invest and really make meaningful progress in repurposing our materials rather than just blindly tossing them out. And that goes with communication and education. Our residents have to be comfortable making these sorts. We know we have enthusiastic people living in the city who are ready to hand pick through their trash every day or stop and think about where they're putting it, but there's a whole nother world of people who never thought about waste that way. They saw it as something they just wanted to get rid of, and were complaining that they didn't have their 2 days of trash collection anymore. So there's a lot of work that we have to do, but I think my colleague pointed out the enthusiasm we have in the leadership to do this, and so I'm very hopeful that this will be the first of many CIPs that is going to be helping to transform what we do with our waste materials. So, no questions.
Thank you very much. And one of the things that I think in your introduction that you failed to recognize is the amazing contributions that Commissioner Collins brings to this commission, as just evidenced. So I have a few questions for you on this. So there was really no discussion regarding the incinerator. This is probably the first CIP where it hasn't been brought up in terms of, all of the issues that are associated with the incinerator. That is a privately owned facility, correct?
Correct.
And the city contracts with that owner-operator to dispose of a certain portion of our waste. And that contract has been extended, it was extended, I think, last year or the year before, for a 10-year period. And so we are relying on that contract. What is the 2048 lifespan of the quarantine landfill dependent on that 10 years, or with some of the waste going to the incinerator? And if something was to happen to the incinerator, to that contract, or whatever, now all of a sudden 2048 becomes 2035 because we now have to accept more waste into the quarantine landfill than we would before.
No, it's not. It's not tied to the landfill. It's a 10-year agreement. And if the incinerator shut down today, all the waste would just go to quarantine. We'd have to do some major shuffling to make that happen. But
and therefore, the lifespan of quarantine would drop from 2048 to something less than 2048.
that is correct.
Okay.
You would lose some life.
Do we accept trash, waste, any waste, not just from any other jurisdiction in our landfills? I mean, you mentioned that a republic may go over and dump something in quarantine. We're charging them for that, of course.
Right. But we don't have any. There's no county entities outside that are coming over to dump because the majority of them go to the incinerator. If they had a, dirt or something that wasn't burnable, well, maybe they would bring it to us. But to my understanding, we don't have any county entities that are dumping there.
Okay, which was the second question, which is, I know some of our neighboring jurisdictions are using the incinerator to dispose of some of their waste, and if they, at some point when the incinerator, if ever the incinerator is no longer used, then where is that waste going to go? And the answer is, we don't have room for it in Baltimore City, so y'all figure it out, right?
No, not really. I mean, the long-term issue, we get our rail spur up and going, and we can take.
I got plenty of questions on that one.
We can take plenty.
So on the servicing and recycling, this is more operations than CIP, but are we all comfortable that, we're back to a normal service, pickup of waste and recycling? Are we where we want to be? Henceforth, we're going to say that, this is, unfortunately, I live in a condo, so it's all privately handled. So I don't put my trash out on the curb for Baltimore City to pick up. But are we on a regular schedule and we're sticking with this schedule? Or are there going to be upgrades in the schedule where, I think, as Marcia said, we were twice a week for trash, and I think once a week for recycling, and now we're once a week for trash, and how often for recycling? And
It's bi-weekly, but you will see a change in the first quarter of this year with recycling. I think previously it was picked up once a week, and then COVID hit and it went to bi-weekly. It will go back to once a week sometime during this first quarter, though. That'll be the
Great.
only change. Days won't change.
Good. Finally, I mean, the long haul station is obviously a game changer in a lot of ways. I would strongly suggest that maybe you should be including some money for that study now, and starting that today, because that is going to take a long time from here to implementation. And so we should probably get that on the books going now. Associated with that, the physical location of that facility is going to be probably one of the most difficult things you have to deal with, because wherever you put it, you're going to have a lot of people saying, we don't want it here.
No. It'll be right near our landfill. There's a spur in that area. There's nothing back there but businesses. There's no residents. You don't have to.
Perfect. You answered
Yeah,
my question.
we're going. That will fly without a problem.
All right. Well, I think that's maybe a little optimistic. I'll take the over/under on that one. But no. But I really, as Commissioner Allen stated, I sincerely appreciate your enthusiasm. I'm delighted that you've joined us as of July. I look forward to seeing you in the year's future.
Sure.
Are there any other questions from the commission? Did I address your question?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Director?
Chair, if I just may, and apologies, I should have done this from the beginning of the presentation. Yes, our bureau head joined us back in July. I take it for granted because we spend so much time together that I forget it's actually a short period of time. But as you can tell, and I think Commissioner Allen, you said this best, but the enthusiasm from our bureau head and really looking at solid waste strategies from this macro and broader and long-term planning effort, that's what's really going to be the game changer for Baltimore City. So we are so thankful to have Mr. Jeter and his decades-long career within the solid waste industry and bringing in those different perspectives to us. And I hope that reflected in the presentation. And we look forward
Absolutely.
to more of these conversations with you. And I just want to give my appreciation to this commission too for your full support for DPW and especially our solid waste staff.
I'm going to reiterate to you as well that I think the long haul station is really, really important. And let's make sure that we do something with that ideally this fiscal year. And thank you very much.